Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Fairfield. It's so good to see everybody this morning. 11:33 today, the spring starts. So about the time we're finished, we can all look forward to that. In terms of a centering thought this morning, I got a newsletter that some of you also may have gotten from Friends Committee on National Legislation this week. And in it, it talks about Laurel Townhead, who is the Human Rights and Refugees Representative for the Quaker United Nations office in Geneva. She belongs to the Geneva monthly meeting in Switzerland. And she was being interviewed by Alex Franson. And one of the questions that he asked, I thought was particularly interesting and might give us some reflection this morning. The question is there anything unique about the Quaker faith that you believe equips Quaker friends for work on migration? Her answer, well, I don't think it's unique for friends. I think that the deeply held belief in the sacred in all of us and the calling to honor that in everyone gives us a starting point. It connects us to individual people and their dignity rather than the labels that immigration systems put on them. There's part of an Australian yearly meeting epistle from 1975 that I think encapsulates this well for me. Are we aware of oppression and injustice that denies the full glow of the inner light to so many? Do we feel the hurt within ourselves and our own light diminish until we take action? Well, since the music started, we will. Our first song is Be Thou Our Vision in the Worship and Song book, page 154. The reading for Hope and Healing this morning is by our own Mary.
Good morning. Give you a little context. I chose to do a reading on reconciliation from Thich Nhat Hanh's book, one of 100 he published, called True Love. He's written a whole book on reconciliation. This is just one little piece in this book. But anyway, context. This past week, I have been keeping vigil with a friend and his family because his sister was dying of cancer. And she passed away last Sunday. I was also aware that in January, Thich Nhat Hanh died. He was a Vietnamese Buddhist monk, a peace activist, and somebody I'm trying to read more of and get more familiar with, because he's known as the socially engaged Buddhist. Could go into more, but because of that, I thought about death a lot in that transition. He had commented, though we die to this body when we take our last breath, we don't die to our greater body of influence, extending through all those we have touched directly and indirectly, rippling out and out into who knows what farthest reaches of time and space. So much of spiritual growth we tend to put in either terms of healing, which assumes something injured, ill, broken, damaged. And the process then is one of restoring health or restoring broken relationships. There's another wellness kind of model for that growth, where the language is more about learning and organic development, that it is focused on the emergence of new life, drawing on an inherent force for living that is within any living organism. Whichever we use, basically we're talking about transitions. We're talking about processes. In this little excerpt on reconciliation, Thich Nhat Hanh is talking about restoration of relationships. In meditation, we act according to the principle of nonviolence. This is because I know that I am happiness and that I am also suffering, that I am understanding and that I am also ignorance. For this reason, I must take care of both of these aspects. I must not discriminate against one of them. I must not suppress one side in favor of the other. I know that each of them is vitally necessary for the other. The Buddha tells us, if this exists, that element of our being and another element of our being. There should only be an effort of taking care and being able to transform. So we must have a nonviolent attitude with regard to our suffering, our pain. We must take care of our suffering the way we would take care of our own baby. We should do that not only in relation to our mental formations, but also in relation to our physical body. Breathing in, I am aware of my eyes. Breathing out, I am smiling at my eyes. When you practice in this way, you touch your eyes with the energy of mindfulness, and you begin to make peace with your eyes. You begin to understand the nature of your eyes. If you continue practicing in this way for several minutes, you will see that your eyes are one of the basic conditions of your well-being and your happiness. To have eyes that are still in good condition, what good fortune. This is a marvelous thing. You only have to open your eyes to see the blue sky, the white clouds, the cherry blossoms, the sunset, the face of your baby. With our eyes in good condition, a paradise of forms and colors is available to us. There are people who have lost their sight and they live in darkness. And they very profoundly believe that if anybody could help them get their sight back, this would be like entering paradise, the paradise of forms and colors. And we do have our eyes in good functioning. And we really are in paradise of forms and colors. But without mindfulness, we forget that. Your eyes are already one of the basic conditions of your happiness. And mindfulness helps you touch one of those conditions. He goes on to direct a practice of focusing on your heart and its beat and paying attention to that in the same way, and awakening your heart, awakening your mind to the miraculousness and the beauty of being alive.
Thank you, Mary. That's really food for thought for all of us. It's now time for announcements. We're going to start with Zoom folks. And a little bit of a new thing this morning. They'd like for whenever you start an announcement or anything, say your name so that the Zoom people will understand who is speaking. And the Zoom people can also say their name so we'll understand who you are.
And I assume that'll be the same for voice return to.
Sure. Good idea. Yeah. Very good idea. Okay, so how about Zoom folks? Any announcements there?
Hi, I'm Teresa, and everybody on Zoom can see my name, but everybody else, anyway, I'm Teresa, and I'm working with the Family Promise Group. We are 1 week away from our pledge week. We need to discuss further at the meeting. Don't we have a meeting tonight? That is the business meeting. Okay, because I suspect that Family Promise will never go back to the format where we house them. So we have that to discuss tonight. But in 1 week, we have our pledge week where we are providing food, and those dinners have all been spoken for with the exception of Wednesday. I have one dinner left if anyone wants that. And for the breakfast and lunch or the supplies that they want the rest of the day, Dinah went ahead and contacted Jennifer and got clarification on that. They have other food that is donated to Family Promise, and the items that they ask to be delivered by the churches or by anyone who pledges for breakfast and lunch, those items are specific things that they don't have coming in. So that's why that list doesn't look like a variety of food, is because they do have other food that's coming in. So it's the bread, the milk, the cheese, the eggs. I mean, they just have a few items. I went ahead and printed out that schedule, and it is on the Family Promise wall there in the meeting house. If anybody wants to sign up for any of those, a gallon of milk or sliced cheese, there's line items so you can fill that out. I really appreciate everyone who has already chosen what they're going to bring or volunteering to help our families on this, what may be our last week for them in the hotel room. As soon as they get the new house ready, the format's going to change again. So thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Teresa. I was really worried that those people were just having bread and water all the time. So I'm glad to get that cleared up. We have other Zoom announcements.
Debbie, this is Dinah Geiger. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Yes, I just wanted to go along with what Teresa said, that it is very important that somebody signs up for Wednesday. It is very important that you look at the chart that's on the wall right when you walk into the dining room. She's fixed it so there are lines that you can sign your name, so that all those lines need to get filled up so that we will have enough food to take to them next week. So if you can do that, we really, really, really appreciate it. The other thing is the meeting she's talking about is monthly meeting tonight at 7 o'clock on Zoom, and you should have gotten the link for it, I think, yesterday. I think that's all, unless Randy has something to add to that.
Well, it's not his turn anyway, so here we go. Any other Zoom announcements? Okay, how about in-person announcements? Okay. Say your name first.
Hi, I'm Jimmy. I have a few announcements again on behalf of Tara, who's in there with the kids. First, if you have a child or a grandchild interested in Quaker Haven, see Tara for details. Two, if you have a child or grandchild that would like to apply for the Milwaukee Scholarship, they'll be available next week, or I guess that'd be today, because this was last week, or it can be emailed to you by Tara this past week. I guess deadline will be May 1st. And then please consider donating individually wrapped candy for the Easter egg hunt. The hunt will take place before meeting on Easter Sunday. Collection is in the dining room, or you can give it to me and I'll take it for you. And just a reminder, Jan is retiring May 22nd. If you have photos or memories about you or your child's time with her, send those to Tara for the memory books she's collecting. And then there's one more. She also wanted me to mention that the scholarship will go out in an email tomorrow and can be turned in digitally. Thank you.
Hi, Trey. Just a reminder that next Sunday at 9:30, and then right after meeting, for those that can help set up the Zoom, show up, and it takes about 5 minutes to set up, so it's real easy and have good instructions. So please try to come. If you've ever used Zoom, you can help us.
Hi, Jeff Gabbard, just saying that April 23rd, the day after Earth Day, the Peace and Social Justice Committee will be having a spring wildflower hike at McCormick's Creek State Park. I put some flyers on the table in the gathering room and on the bulletin board with the details, but we'll have 2 walks available, one that's wheelchair accessible and another that's a little more involved. And then after the hike, we'll meet at the Canyon Inn and have lunch together. So Anyone has any questions, please reach out to me, and I'll do my best to help you.
Okay, it's Becky McClung for those on Zoom. And this isn't really an announcement, but I wanted to say it, so it's going to be now. Yesterday, I attended the Zoom conference. The Friends World Committee for Consultation had a conference called Spirit-Led Climate Action Among Quakers. And I just wanted to share a few things about that, my take homes. And the overall objective of this was really to inspire those in attendance to want to go take things back to their meeting. And there were a couple speakers. One of them was Haley Hathaway, who is from New Mexico. She's involved with Quaker Earth Care Witness. And she talks about climate crisis is a spiritual crisis. It's because all life is sacred. And one of the points she made that was really hit home to me is climate crisis, it affects marginalized communities the most. So it can't be separated from racism, income inequality, poverty, and those issues. It's all one. There's no way you can separate it. And one of the questions she asked was, how can we listen and follow the voices of those most impacted? One of the challenges that she brought to us. And really, I just want to emphasize there was a lot of information, a lot of inspiration. These were just the key things that hit me the most. Another speaker was Paul Christensen. He's a Quaker activist. He's a high school teacher. One of the things he said is no arcs. He said, we can't save some and leave others behind. That's not going to work this time. He also talked about despair, depression, and that aspect of it. And really that continued to come out through the breakout groups. People talked about that a lot because, feeling like nothing will work and there's nothing we can do, and the paralysis that can come from that. And one of the things he said was there's good news and there's bad news. He said, you can do more than, and it's the same thing. You can do more than what you think you can. And that's good news, but kind of bad news. And this is after he had talked a little bit about frustration over other Quakers that weren't, that seemed to be in this lethargic state about it, kind of inert state. So I guess that's the bad news is you can do more than you think you can. So you got to get to work. He talked about, he's a high school teacher, and he said, he was talking about, you have to just start somewhere, do something. And he said, when he's working with his students, and he said, you got to turn something in. I mean, you got to put something on. I can't help you unless you start. If you turn in a paper, I can critique it, I can help you, but I can't, a blank page I can do nothing with. So I thought that was a good analogy because, start somewhere. His vision is to make it normal to work on the climate crisis, not exceptional, not weird, just something that we do. And he also said, whatever you do it visibly, bear witness. Of course, we're talking about spirit-led and the spiritual crisis as well, right? So in one of the breakout sessions, one of the people in my breakout sessions said, and it kind of goes along with that about doing it visibly, talking, bearing witness. And this man said, be openly religious. That's hard for us as Quakers to be verbal, but he said, talk about it as a spiritual issue, talk about it, incorporate it into your language. Another one said, as way open, step into it, just do it, because there's little things all along the way. the other point, and I'll end with that, is, we can make changes as individuals. A lot of us do that, right? I mean, we do things ourselves, but the importance of doing it together. So finding more and more ways that together we can take action. So I just wanted to share that because I felt inspired, and I don't know if Anita or I don't know if Carol Stradling is here, but they were also there.
Any other announcements this morning? Okay, well, it's time to talk real briefly about offering. This meeting does a great job with the donations that you all contribute to us, and we all appreciate it, and want to remind you that you can donate through the website, fairfieldfriends.org, PayPal. There's also the things at the back of the church here, right here, where you can drop in checks or cash or anything if you're interested in that. Sorry. And don't forget the baskets in the lobby out there for your food donations for Kuna.
Oh God, we are mindful this morning of all the ways our lives have been graced by your Spirit and by the Spirit of others. We give you thanks, oh God, for the healings in our lives and in the lives of our friends and family, for lessons learned in times of struggle, for answers to mysteries, and for patience when we do not know. Oh God, we are especially mindful this morning of the people of Ukraine and all who suffer under the hands of others. Place in our hearts, oh God, a conviction to always seek the betterment of our neighbors, so that those who live next to us can say only good, can report to others that we have been a blessing in their lives and never a curse. Oh God, for the example of your grace, for the model of your Son Jesus, and all of those people whose lives are committed to the betterment of this world. For those lives, oh God, we are especially grateful this first day morning. Amen. Friends, let us sing together, Have Thine Own Way, Lord. It's in our green hymnal, number 161. I have a friend I've known about 10 years. I only see him once a year when he returns to this area. I met him at a talk I was giving, but then he moved shortly afterwards, and we've managed to stay in touch through email and the occasional phone call. But once every summer, he returns to see his family and friends, and we meet and share a meal. When I first met him, he was a Methodist, dabbling in Quakerism. Then he became enchanted with Buddhism, so poked around in that for a few years before taking a dip in the waters of Unitarian Universalism. When I saw him this past summer, during that little break we had from COVID, he was exploring Hinduism. After all, he told me, 1.2 billion Hindus can't be wrong. But that was 8 months ago, and since then he has sent in a sample of his DNA and discovered he was 10% Native American, so is now smoking peyote and communing with the Great Spirit. His interest in spirituality expresses itself in a fascination with the most recent thing he's learned. Sometime in the next year, he'll read an article about the latest trend in religion and pronounce himself a devotee of that faith. Like many people, he has assumed spiritual depth comes from leaping from one religion to another, so has never stayed in any one faith long enough to reap its benefits. He's like a man I know who married 6 different women before the age of 40 in search of true love. For God's sakes, I once told him, that isn't long enough to learn their favorite brand of toothpaste. True love takes at least 20 years. I love that scene in the movie Moonstruck. You remember that movie with Cher and Nicolas Cage? I love that scene when Olympia Dukakis, the mother, asks her daughter Loretta, played by Cher, if she loves Ronnie Camerari. And Loretta says, "Ma, I love him awful." And the mother says, "Oh God, that's too bad." I knew exactly what her mother meant. True love takes at least 20 years. Spirituality, I think, is like true love. It isn't found by leaping from one fad to another. It is more often deeply rooted in a spiritual tradition someone has engaged for many years, often for a lifetime. This past January 23rd, the Vietnamese Buddhist monk, Thich Nhat Hanh, as Mary said, passed away at the age of 95, having practiced Buddhism his entire life. He was exiled from Vietnam in 1966 because he protested against that war, and then moved to southern France, where he began the Plum Village Monastery. He was known as the father of mindfulness, and he wrote and traveled the world part of the year, and then spent the remainder of the year in meditation and contemplation. Rather than sampling a menu of religious traditions, he immersed himself deeply in one, reminding us that spirituality is not a smorgasbord in which we sample whatever catches our eye. It is a profound commitment to the riches of a single love. While spirituality is often in conversation with other religious expressions, it remains rooted in its single love. The Dalai Lama didn't become profound and compassionate by his stints as a Baptist or Scientologist. He became the Dalai Lama by wringing all he could from Tibetan Buddhism. Similarly, Mother Teresa didn't learn compassion by attending a lecture on reincarnation as a teenager. Her compassion was rooted in an almost 50-year journey with the Missionaries of Charity in Calcutta. Spirituality is a consequence, a product of our profound commitment to the riches of a single love. This is why it is possible to find deeply spiritual people in almost every religious tradition. Let's have none of that talk that one is truer than the other. All religions have people in them who are deeply and profoundly spiritual people. They are the ones who have mined deeply the very best a religion has to offer. And that always takes time. That always takes time. Back when I was pastoring up in the city, this was in the early 90s, a woman interested in Quakerism began attending our meeting. And within a month, she was arguing with everyone in the meeting about peace. Rather ironic now that I think about it. We weren't doing enough. We weren't marching enough, weren't boycotting enough, weren't riding the president enough, weren't teaching our children enough. And then the Bosnian War broke out in the former Yugoslavia, and she announced that she was no longer a pacifist, that America needed to bomb the Serbs. I felt this kind of existential whiplash. In the space of a month, she had gone from Mahatma Gandhi to General MacArthur. Because she hadn't invested the necessary time to plumb the depths of our peace testimony. Spirituality is about depth, not set of beliefs we have reflected upon, embraced, and persisted with long enough to shape us. It isn't predicated on our fickle devotion to the latest religious fad. And this works for all dimensions of our lives. Joanne and I are coming up on our 39th anniversary. We've been with one another nearly 2/3 of our lives. Notice how youthful she looks. And just this past week, after all that time together, I discovered she really doesn't like fried chicken, but has allowed me to drag her all over the Midwest to various fried chicken establishments, indulging my culinary passion without a word of complaint. You can imagine my shock. But other than questioning my wife's judgment, my point is this: her judgment not about men, but about fried chicken. Let me be clear. My point is this: there is always something to learn when one has made a profound commitment to a single love. We never know all there is to know about someone we've spent a long time with, and we never know all there is to know about a religious tradition, even when we have spent a long time in that tradition. There are new mysteries every day, new insights, perspectives that have evaded us. We must live with someone or something long enough to reap the wheat of their witness and not just the chaff. This pattern of persisting with a single love raises an important question for us. Do we persist in our spiritual commitments and relational commitments long enough to be positively shaped by them? Or are we too easily distracted by something or someone more alluring, more exciting, more exotic? There's a saying I'm sure you've all heard, which originated with our Buddhist brothers and sisters. When the student is ready, the teacher appears. When the student is ready, the teacher appears. So if this were a Quaker query, I would ask this, and I leave us with this query. Are my commitments of long enough duration to learn all I am able to learn? Are my commitments of long enough duration to learn all I am able to learn?